Welcome to the SAP 49er and 49er FX Europeans 2013 in the well-known venue of Aarhus in Denmark. A perfect location with great weather and breeze expected for the championships. Sailing Aarhus is a partnership of 5 sailing clubs whose aim is to promote sailing and organize major events. The SAP 49er and 49er FX Europeans 2013 is the first time that the teams who are campaigning for Rio 2016 are all together, so expect a real battle to unfold as teams jostle to make their mark at the first championship of the quadrennial. Amongst the 37 teams in the women's 49er FX are all of the world's top 10. Over in the men's 49er fleet there are 91 teams, with all top sailors being here. The racing format for the men will see 2 days of qualification and 4 days of fleet races, including the medal-deciding final races. Today, the 49er blue and yellow fleets are up on the track first this morning, with the racetracks handed over to the 49er red fleet and women's 49er FX fleet for this afternoon's races. However, early in the morning, the weather did not seem to be on the side of the racers, and it was too light to get any racing underway, with heavy rain adding to the mix. The sun soon appeared in full glory, but still no wind. Let's see some action for the blue fleet at their first race of the day. Top sailors and Olympians are gathered here, such as Croatia's world number 7 team of Kostov and Kupac and Austria's Delakarth and Retz. Great Britain's Fletcher and Sine were suffering from a poor performance in this first race, a similar shocker for the 2012 Olympic bronze medal helm Norregard. A general recall for the first attempt to start race 2 of the blue fleet before the race got underway with not much change in the conditions, still light and shifty. Dottoli and Delpes and Norregard and Thompson started up at the race committee end of the start line. The first upwind was shifty and hard to read, but taking the lead at the first windward was Germany's Kramer brothers, who led the fleet downwind, with the French and Danish teams again outside of the top 5. Downwind and the fleet was spread all over the racecourse trying to sail the shifts. Dottoli opted for the right side of the track downwind, not a wise move as they lost valuable places. The Kramers continued to lead but were overtaken by Canada's Maury and Barnes ahead of the finish and had to settle for second place. The Danish and French teams finished 5th and 9th, but it is only day 1 and plenty of races ahead to balance things out. Over in the 49er FX fleet are some teams who have already established themselves as teams to watch, including Germany's Meyer and Halbrode. Holland's Beckering and Blom finished 4th at the recent Delta Lloyd Regatta and have their eyes on a podium position here in Denmark. Competing in the 49er FX fleet are also 4 of the Seiko teams, including Brazil's Senft and Nicolino. Too many teams over the line for the first start of the day forced a general recall, with Denmark's Hansen and Iversen taking the advantage off the line to move them into the lead upwind, with Great Britain's McGregor and Rook up close to them. However, it was Nielsen and Olsen who scored the opening bullet, followed by a 7th place in the second race, and then a surprise and below-average result for them, a 27th in the third race. Going strong and standing out with the top performance of the day were Germany's Lutz and Berker, who claimed a 7-3-2 scoreline to climb to the top of the leaderboard. Many of the usual front runners struggled with their game yesterday and had to push forward today with everything they had to advance through to the Gold Fleet and be in with a chance at the next fleet race stage of the championship. In the first race of the day in the 49er men's yellow fleet, it was the defending 49er European champions from 2012, Frey and Rocheyer, who took out the best start at the pin end and hit the left-hand side of the racetrack. Their mediocre performance from yesterday called for some drastic action if they wanted to secure their promotion to the Gold Fleet racing stage. The pair raced steadily around the track to finish the race in 6th and then followed up with an impressive scoreline of race win, followed by a second and rounding out the day with another race win. They made it easy as they accelerated their way up the leaderboard to 4th overall. In the 49er men red fleet, the Danish gold and bronze Olympic medalists Wara and Lang were up against Austria's Olympians Delacarth and Resch, the British pair Evans and Powys, and the world number 6 ranked German pair of Hale and Ploessel. The Austrians delivered the best scoreline of the Red Fleet racing, a really tidy row of 4 top finishes, which they desperately needed to balance out yesterday's disaster, which effectively saw them placed in the bronze fleet. What a difference a day makes, and this pair have plenty of years of experience to draw on when it counts. Hale and Ploessel had a far more steady scoreline from yesterday and were already well up the leaderboard. They delivered again with another solid performance of 2 bullets, a 6th and a 7th to position themselves in 2nd overall on the leaderboard. Over in the 49er men blue fleet, it was a day for the Kiwi teams to shine. Absolutely dominating the fleet were the young pairing of Hansen and Perepsky, who found their groove and put in an unstoppable performance of 2 bullets and 2 second places, which rocketed them right up to the top of the leaderboard. An unbelievable day for this pair. London's Olympic silver medalists Burling and Tug secured the other 2 bullets and climbed to 5th overall. Right up with the Kiwis for the first 2 races was Danish 2012 Olympic bronze medalist Norregard with Crew Thompson. The local pair used every whiff of their local knowledge to secure a 3rd, 4th, 11th and 9th and edge up the leaderboard from well outside the Gold Fleet relegation zone yesterday to a safe 11th overall today. The windy and more consistent conditions were certainly preferable for many teams compared to yesterday, and clearly the choppy waves, which were a challenge for some teams, suited the Kiwis well. Both Burling and Tug took some time out from 49er sailing post-Olympics to do some AC-45 catamaran sailing and extreme sailing series racing, which they will continue to combine this year with their 49er calendar. The women's 49er FX fleet stayed ashore until the men had raced before hitting the track. The Danish team of Nielsen and Olsen were the undisputed team of the day, setting the pace around the windward-leeward course to take out the first 2 race wins and then a 2nd place. Early days, but they have already found themselves with a handy 12-point margin over the 2nd place German team of Lutz and Berker. The world-ranked number 2 pair of Grael and Kunze repeated some of their racing flair from yesterday with a 3-2 scoreline, and lucky for them, the discard kicked in after race 5, so they were able to discount their 29th place in race 6 from their scoreline. Let's have an overview of the day and of what's to come.
Well, we had like a tough day today. It was a bit more breeze than yesterday, that was good. And it was still shifty, but luckily it picked up in the end. And it was quite typical that at the top mark the wind was a lot more, and then at the gate mark at the bottom it was less. So at the top mark it was quite exciting because all the boats came together. So we had not really crashes, but it was, well, excitement.
Went okay. We missed a little bit of speed. I did a little swimmer, so it was a little bit hard, but we came out good. And I think for the qualifier it's okay.
One more day of racing for the 49er FX women before the top 16 who will advance to the finals are determined. So everything is still open. The 90-strong fleet and the men's 49er are today divided into gold, silver and bronze groups for the fleet racing stage, whilst the 49er FX women's fleet are onto their last day of qualifications to decide the 16 who will advance to the semi-finals tomorrow. A light wind across the race courses this morning kept everyone ashore under postponement. So, time for the sailors to relax and to better prepare their skiffs before the breeze kicked in for racing. In Race Area B, the 49er FX fleet were the first to start racing for the day, with the top teams on the leaderboard all opting for the port end of the line in qualifying Race 7. Denmark's Hansen and Iversen secured the best start and took an early and clear lead from the rest of the fleet, with Germany's Lutz and Berker currently 2nd overall on the leaderboard to windward of them. But the shifty weather did not help the teams heading up the left side of the track, and as soon as they tacked, they had already lost out a significant distance behind the teams that had headed to the right side of the track. The first rounding of the Windward Mark saw many of the boats who up until then had been further down the overall standings, taking the advantage and round first and outpacing the teams normally to be found at the front of the pack. For the usual front runners to claw their way back through the fleet was going to be a tough call, particularly with the light conditions. As it turned out, glory in race 7 went to Australia's Parkinson and Hall, who up until that point were in the mid-20s on the leaderboard. The one leading team who managed to sail solidly in this shifty race 7 was Brazil's Grail and Kunze, who finished in third, which helped to convert their leaderboard position to second overall at the end of the day. Still holding firm at the top of the leaderboard are Denmark's Bag Nielsen and Thursgaard Olsen. The race committee on the men's 49er course had a few challenges getting racing underway. With the course closer to shore, the wind struggled to stabilise in strength and direction. A bit more time for the teams to prepare themselves and adjust the boats for the conditions ahead. When racing got started in the 31-boat Gold Fleet for the first race of the Fleet Race stage, it was the Danish heroes Wara and Lang who rounded the Windward Mark first, with the British team of Fletcher and Sign right on their tail. In the light breeze, it was a slow-paced race with 100% attention required by the teams, as they are all in the Gold Fleet now and every point counts. The Kiwis Hansen and Perebski, yesterday's overall leaders, were way back in last place, evidence of how tough the racing has become with the best of the best all in one fleet. Racing is incredibly close, with frequent place changes. Lucky for them, the Kiwis did manage to battle their way back through the fleet though, and finished in 17th. Today was the day of Fletcher and Sign, whose win in race 1 and a 7th in race 2 rewards them with the yellow jerseys at the top of the leaderboard.
Today we had a really good day, Alan and myself. It was tough out there. It was really shifty and really light, and sometimes the breeze was coming in. So we had a good first day in the similar conditions, and today we had another good day with a first and a 7th. We were just really trying to aim to get off the line on the shift and not really worry about the other boats. Just try and get our boat to the Windward Mark as quickly as possible.
The tension mounts as we move through the fleet and final stage at the SAP 49er and 49er FX European Championships. The skies cleared and a breeze of around 12 knots kicked in as the SAP 49er and 49er FX European Championship moved into race day 4 here in Aarhus, Denmark. The 49er FX women are on to their semi-final series with the top 16 racing together, whilst over in the 49er men, the 32-boat Gold Fleet was aiming for 4 more races today before the top 16 advance to their semi-final series tomorrow. The opening race of the day was in Course Area A, where the world's top 16 49er FX teams contested 4 races of around 20 minutes each in front of an enthusiastic crowd gathered on the dock to watch the racing firsthand. America's Tunnicliffe and Vandermeer were the first boat at the pin end of the line, whilst the majority of the top teams started closer to the committee boat and quickly headed off to the right side of the course. Right was right and the decision to make, leaving those who opted for the left side of the track struggling, including Germany's Lutz and Berker. Denmark's Hansen and Iversen rounded the Windward Gate first, followed closely by the British team of Peters and Groves. Series leaders Nielsen and Olsen were further back in the pack, but crawling their way up the fleet by sailing conservatively. They have the strategic advantage of home waters and local knowledge. The Brazilians were soon feeling the pressure, and it was obvious that the Danish were not ready to be relieved of their leader's mantle. The 2 Danish teams had a fantastic day's racing and hold on to the top 2 spots. Nielsen and Olsen are still on top, with a 14-point margin over teammates Hansen and Iversen, who have climbed up to 2nd overall. New Zealand's world #1 team of Maloney and Meets are in 3rd. The level of competition is incredibly close, with plenty more suspense and excitement to come. Soon after the 49er FX fleet left the track, it was over to the 32-boat 49er men Gold Fleet to take their place on the racecourse. A critical day which was to determine the top 16 who will advance to tomorrow's semi-finals. In their first race of the day, Spain's Alonso brothers, who started the day in 17th overall, chose the pin end of the line, with the French team of Dottoli and Delpech and series leaders Fletcher and Sainz to windward of them, all three opting for the left side of the track. It was another shifty day with constant place changes as teams sniffed out the shifts and chose varying tactics from one tack to the next. Making an appearance at the front of the pack were Great Britain's Peters and Fitzgerald, who read the racetrack superbly and rounded the windward gate first, with Denmark's 2008 Olympic gold medal Helm Wara and 2012 Olympic bronze medal crew Lang following a bit further back. The leaderboard top three going into the day were struggling further back in the pack, unable to continue their dominance, giving the opportunity for others to make inroads into their points advantage. A great performance from the Kiwi 2012 Olympic silver medalists, who rounded the first windward gate in 25th place but dug deep to up their game and combined perfectly chosen tactics with superior boat speed to finish in second place. It was just one of those perfect days for the Kiwis, who knocked out 4 top finishers to pop into first overall on the leaderboard. Just behind them are Great Britain's Fletcher and Sainz, with Germany's Hale and Ploessel moving up into third. A tiebreak had to determine the top 16 cut, with the 16th, 17th, 18th and 19th place boats on equal points. Advantage to Australia's Phillips and Mara, who advanced through. A great breezy day to showcase skiff racing, with the offshore course areas carrying more wind pressure. A full programme of racing was completed, with all fleets on schedule and showcasing skiff sailing at its best. The penultimate day at the SAP 49er and 49er FX Europeans was a beautiful one. The sunny weather in the city of Aarhus could not have been better for the sailing fans that came down to watch this decisive day unfold. But there was quite a long wait as teams and fans waited for the sea breeze to kick in, so the top 16 teams in the 49er fleet and 49er FX fleets could get out racing. The wind kept everyone waiting until well into the afternoon. Finally, the wind picked up and it was time for the girls to take their turn at course area A. In the middle of the line, it was the series leaders Denmark's Nielsen and Olsen, with the fourth-placed Brazilians Grael and Kunze sticking close to them and just to windward. The other Danish team of Hansen and Iversen opted for the pin end of the start line. Conditions looked to favour the boats who chose a start in the middle of the line, who found much better speed, and it was not a surprise to find the usual suspects, Nielsen and Olsen, rounding on the top at the windward gate, followed closely by their teammates Hansen and Iversen in second and Grael and Kunze in third. The Kiwi world number 1 ranked pairing of Maloney and Meat and the Italians Conti and Klapic were pushing hard on the first downwind leg, really putting pressure on the Danish, who dropped back to third and opened the door for the Brazilians to take the lead and round the bottom gate at the front of the pack. Not too many position changes in the final last upwind, and the Brazilians hoisted their spinnaker with style as they headed home to claim the bullet. Hansen and Iversen were still close behind, with Nielsen and Olsen in third, as they all chose the left side of the course. But it was to prove a costly judgment call for some. The Kiwis Maloney and Meats went the opposite way and chose the right side of the track and sailed a blinder downwind to convert up to second place and finish just behind the Brazilians. Right after the women had finished, it was time for the 49er men top 16 to have a second try at getting their races in. A challenge as the breeze was slowly dying. Sticking close to each other at the pin end of the line were the two Danish teams of Wara and Lang and Norregaard and Thompson. The British pair of Fletcher and Sainz, second on the leaderboard going into the day, opted for the committee boat end of the start line. A wise starting manoeuvre, and it was advantage to the British, who were first to the windward gate with a clear and safe lead. The rest of the fleet jostled about a bit in what became a packed rounding. Into the downwind leg, and the Kiwi 2012 Olympic silver medalists Berling and Tug had some close battles, particularly engaging with the French Dottoli and Delpech, but they came out well and rounded the bottom gate in second place, intent on not losing their leaderboard top place to anyone, least of all the British pair. With Fletcher and Syne continuing to extend their lead, it was a tactical game for the rest of the teams. The French Dottoli and Delpech had by now edged up to second place, with Croatia's Olympians Kostov and Kupac in third and the Kiwis knocked back in fourth. Small changes in the last downwind leg, and crossing the line the Croatians had slipped into second place, and it was the British who were now in first on the overall leaderboard, with the Kiwis in second and the French in third. But not for long. On to the second race of the day, and Berling and Tug fought back, secured their fourth race win of the series and were back on top. With the points really close for the top two teams, everything was at stake and now down to the nail-biting drama of the medal races. A perfect day of sunshine in Aarhus, Denmark for finals day at the SAP 49er and 49er FX Europeans 2013. Along with the crowds on shore, a massive online audience was able to witness the action via live streaming with the help of the SAP SailCube and SAP Analytics. The live broadcast, as well as new technologies used by SAP, make sailing much more comprehensible. The tracking and analysis program enables to follow trajectories and provide all kind of sailing data in real time. After a hard and demanding week of various conditions and strong competition in both the 49er and 49er FX fleets, it all came down to the final day, where the top teams would race in theatre-style racing. The course would be like a swimming lane, constraining the fleet and forcing the teams to tack constantly. The day would start with the petite finals for both the 49ers and 49er FX, where the teams with positions 9 to 17 would compete. Then the first out of the petite final 4 races would advance to the grand finals, facing the top 8 teams throughout the championship. Let's see some action from the 49er FX 3-race petite final, where we had some fierce battles between Germany's Uchark and Lorenz and Great Britain's Peters and Groves. The Germans took the advantage in the first of the 3 double points race, finishing first to score 2 points, with the British just behind in third. But the British fought back to outsail the German pair in the next 2 races, finishing third and then wrapping up with a win when they needed it most in the deciding race. So the British pair advanced through to the grand finals with a 6-point advantage over the Germans. On to the grand finals, and Denmark's series leaders Nielsen and Olsen had no intention of relinquishing their lead. They went into the final day with an 11-point lead over the next placed team, but an 11-point margin is nothing with each race score now counting for double. The first race of the finals was a tricky one, with the Dutch team of Beckering and Blom scoring the bullet. The Danish pair finished in 7th, which was not what they had planned. However, the second race was a different story. The Danish pair sailed clever and with some smart tactics on the first upwind leg secured a safe lead. The Kiwi pair of Maloney and Meach performed once more, splendidly finishing in 2nd after a 4th place in the previous race, with Grael and Kunz in 7th. So the last race of the finals saw the Kiwis starting the race in 2nd overall, with the Danish team of Hansen and Iversen completing the podium. At that moment, the Brazilians had to score a bullet, and hoping for a poor performance for their rivals if they wanted to be on the podium. And so it happened. Grael and Kunz managed to maintain their lead throughout the race, leaving the Kiwis in 3rd overall, while the Danish pair of Nielsen and Olsen scored a 5th place, which was enough to give them the title with a 17 points margin. Nielsen and Olsen put in a rock-solid performance throughout the entire week and truly deserved this victory, and to take their position in sailing history as the first ever 49er FX European champions. Back to the 49er men's petite final, where 3 British teams were the top 3 boats going into the day and up against each other to secure that single promotion to the grand finals. The British 2012 Olympic pair of Morrison and Rhodes dug deep, kept the pressure at bay and scored a 2nd and 7th to safely advance through. Swift move on to the 49er men grand finals, where all eyes were on the series leaders and 2012 Olympic silver medalists Burling and Took. Could they do this? A mistake that can happen to anyone, but hopefully not in a medal race, saw the Kiwis over the line at the start and having to go back to restart. They found their rhythm, but another mistake at the first windward mark, resulting in a capsize, again cost them dearly, and they ended up finishing the race right at the back of the pack. What a disaster! Starting the medal races like this does not seem so promising. Will the London Olympic silver medalists manage to recover? On to the second race with Germany's Hale and Ploessel, who won race 1, Great Britain's Fletcher and Sign, and Burling and Took incredibly close on points, but with the British up front. The Kiwis took a perfect start in the middle of the line, where they were joined by France's Dotoli and Delpech. They held their nerve, and some superb boat handling put them up front with a safe clear lead, with Fletcher and Sign in second place. The Kiwis held it to take the race win, with the British finishing in second, so now the overall lead was back with the Kiwis. So it was all down to the third race in the Who Dares Wins decider between the Kiwis and the British. The British claimed the best start, but the Kiwis again showed outstanding boat handling to sail up the fleet and finish in 5th place, with the British in 7th, and seal their victory.
We had a really bad race in the first one, and our coach Ed helped us out, and we just got back on with it and did the job. So really satisfying after we've sailed pretty well, especially in the last few days.
Yeah, I think we really enjoyed the pressure, and it was just kind of dealing at it almost as another race, but just keeping a bit more of an eye on Dylan and Alan, because we had to also beat the French and the Germans, not let them beat us by too much. So we were kind of just doing a normal start, and then from there on we just consolidated and stayed ahead of the British.
Let's have a look at the final results. In the women's fleet, we find 2 teams from Denmark, from Germany and from the UK, while in the men's fleet, the Kiwis have secured 2 places, while the Brits 3. Immediately after racing time, the 49er and 49er FX medalists received their trophies, accompanied by their national anthems and celebrated in style with a classic spraying of champagne. Let's listen to what the winners had to say.
Fantastic, it's huge. It was so amazing to win. Like, we have been in the lead for a few days now, but we haven't really get used to the feeling that we actually could win this, because everything could still happen. So now it's just, it's fantastic.
The weather delivered it all, breezy and light, to really test the teams. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Stay tuned for the next battle amongst the world's top skiff teams, the 2013 49er and 49er FX Worlds taking place in Marseille, France in September.